Hello students, today we are going to discuss about the lecture number 5 of ecology and ecosystem, which is our module 1. So let's start the class. Students, so we are going to start the chapter, that is ecology and ecosystem. Yeah, this is our lecture number 5 and module is 1. This is the subject name, that is environmental chemistry, and this is the subject code, that is MC501 or 401. The contact hour is 24. So these are the some of the objectives. You can able to understand the natural environment and its relationship with human activities after this completion of this course. You can be able to apply the fundamental knowledge of science and engineering to assess the environmental and health risk. You can able to understand environmental laws and regulations to develop guidelines and the procedures for health and safety issues. And lastly, you are uh, uh, you will be able to solve some of the scientific problems and solving related to the air, water, noise and land pollution. Okay, so these are the course outcomes, some of the course outcome of this course, that is MC501 or 401. The course outcomes are to understand the natural environment and its relationship with the human activities, apply the fundamental knowledge of science and engineering to assess environmental and health risk, to develop guideline and procedures for health and safety issues, and some of the you can also acquire some of the skills for scientific problems which you are facing regularly uh, in your life, okay, future life. These are the lecture plan. Okay, so this is the objective of the class. So the objective of today's class is generally we will discuss about the structure and function of the following ecosystem. Next, we will discuss about the components of the forest ecosystem, the grassland ecosystem, the desert ecosystem, the aquatic ecosystem. Okay, so all about this we will discuss. From this portion, generally you can have this type of question, like discuss about the forest ecosystem, discuss about the components of forest ecosystem, what are the types of forest components that we have for the forest ecosystem. So these are the some of the types of the questions very which you can have generally in your exam. Okay, so today we will discuss these are the topics. Now recapitulation. So in my previous class, I have discussed, I have defined first the ecosystem. Okay, then we have seen that what are the elements of ecology, and then we have discussed about the components of the ecosystem, different components and their functions, and lastly at last we have seen how, what do you mean by food chain and food web, how the different food chains are interconnected with each other. So all this, about all these topics that we have discussed in our previous class. So now we will take a glance whatever we have discussed yesterday in our previous class. So ecology, ecosystem, mainly ecology is a branch of the science where we are discussing about the interrelationship between biotic and abiotic components that we have in our environment. And what is ecosystem? Ecosystem means the total, whatever biotic materials, whatever biotic components, whatever abiotic components that we have, the total as a whole, that is called by ecosystem. Okay, so look here, the components of ecosystem, very important. Okay, so this you have to memorize again, because today also whatever topic we will discuss, like forest ecosystem, grassland ecosystem, desert ecosystem, pond ecosystem, so for all this you should know about the components of ecosystem. What are the components, different components of ecosystem, how they are classified. If you don't know, then you can't understand the topic, and also you can't know, you cannot understand the you can define the components, each components of the ecosystems. Okay, so generally there are two components we have. One is biotic components and one is abiotic components. I am again repeating, these components of ecosystem is also important for today's class. Okay, already I have discussed in the previous class, but this is also important for the today's class, because you have to memorize all these things. It is interconnected. Okay, so abiotic components, there are two components we have for the ecosystem. One is abiotic components, one is biotic component. Now abiotic component, what does it mean? Abiotic components means, like again three types. One is physical factor, one is inorganic substances, and one is organic substances. Okay, so physical factors means temperature, humidity, light, atmospheric pressure. Okay, so all these are the physical factors of the abiotic components. And inorganic substances like water, oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide. Okay, hydrogen sulfide, whatever inorganic materials we have in our environment surrounding us, that is called by inorganic substances, and which is obviously belongs to this category, that is abiotic components. Okay, next one is organic substances. You know, organic materials. Organic materials generally, what are the organic materials? Like they are composed of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, in any type of organic materials, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, we can see these elements are bind up with each other. So the examples are like protein, carbohydrate, lipid. So these are the some of the examples of organic substances, which is the part of the abiotic component. So these are the three parts of abiotic component that we have. One is physical factor, one is inorganic substances, one is organic substances. Okay, next we have, that is biotic components. Biotic components means any type of living systems that is belong to this biotic components. Any type of living system, whatever we have in our environment, that is biotic component. And these biotic components again are of three types. One is producer, one is consumer, and one is decomposer. Producer means producer. You can imagine, you can guess that producer, that means what? Which can produce their own food. Generally the green plants. Okay, so these green plants can generate their own food with the help of solar energy, sunlight, right? So these are the examples of the producers that we have in our environment. Now consumers, all type of living systems, whatever animals, human beings, all here belongs to this category, that is consumers. And decomposer means the mainly the microorganisms which feed on the dead bodies. Okay, like whatever any dead bodies it into the environment, what will happen? The bacteria, the micro, all type of microorganisms like bacteria, some of the bacteria, what will happen? Fed on that dead body and decompose. It will decompose that dead body into carbon dioxide and water. Okay, so these these microorganisms are generally called by the decomposer. Okay, so this is all about the components of ecosystem. Now again, these producers are of two types. Again, consumers, we can classify these consumers again three types, and also the we have the decomposer. So that we will see in the next slide. These are the some of the abiotic components. I am not again repeating. Okay, biotic components. What I am talking about. Look, producers are again of two types. One is autotroph, one is chemotroph. Okay, producers. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, producers. So producers are of two types. One is autotroph, one is chemosynthetic bacteria or chemoautotroph. Okay, so what does it mean? Autotroph means the green plants, mainly the green plants, with the help of solar energy, the sunlight, they are producing the glucose, they are producing the food, own food. Okay, so this is called autotroph. Generally, the photosynthesis, the reaction is called by the photosynthesis. Okay, so produce the their sugars, but their food. Okay, and chemoautotroph bacteria, mainly what will happen? They're producing their own food with the help of some of the oxidation reaction and reduction reaction. Okay, so generally they use the geothermal energy in hot spring or deep sea vents to produce their food. Okay, so these are the two types of producers that we have. One is autotroph, one is chemosynthetic. Now consumers. Consumers are of three types: primary consumer, secondary consumer, and the tertiary consumer. Okay, primary consumer mainly what? Primary consumer mainly the herbivorous, all type of herbivorous which consume the plants, which which fed on the producers, that is called by primary consumers. Now secondary consumers, that is the animals which fed on the primary consumers, that is called by which fed on the primary consumers, that is the secondary consumer, like snake, frog. Okay, so some of the rodents, wolves, they are secondary consumers because they fed on the primary consumers. Okay, now tertiary consumer. Tertiary consumers are generally the carnivorous. They they eat the flesh, and like hawk, owl, tiger, lion, all are the tertiary consumers. Examples of the tertiary consumers which fed on the secondary consumers. Okay, so first we have the producers, then we have the primary consumer which fed on the producer. Okay, they intake the producers. Then we have the secondary consumer which can intake the primary consumer, and then we have the tertiary consumers which fed on the secondary consumer. So these are the classifications of consumers that we have. Okay, lastly we have the decomposer, that is the all type of microorganisms which break down the dead bodies, the leaf litter, and other non-living material like fungi, bacteria, millipedes. Okay, so the decomposers are of again two types. One is detritivores and second one is decomposers. Okay, so what detritivores scavenge waste products or dead bodies. directly, okay, and decomposers which break down the leaf litter and other non-living materials, okay. So these are the classifications of decomposers. Now we will, this is the food chain. Food chain generally what, how energy is passing through each and every individual in our environment that we have, that is called by food chain, how they are related to each and every one. Okay, generally food chain are of two type. One is grazing and yes. For the food chains, is of two type. Classification of food chain two type: grazing and detritus. Uh, detritus. Okay. Now food wave. Food wave, actually what will happen? Different food chain that we have, okay, different ecosystem that we have, which is interconnected through each other. So this is called food wave. How they are interconnected with each other, that we will discuss in this topic. Now come to the okay. Now I have given one question for the quick review, how much you have remembered whatever I have taught in my previous class, okay. So question is, name one secondary consumer. Very easy, and for that you have 10-second time. Yeah, your 10-second time is over, and of course the answer is Olds rodent. That means which fed on the which fed on the primary consumers, that is called by secondary consumer, okay. Now this is the today's topic. So classification of ecosystem. Generally ecosystems are of two type, one is natural, one is man-made. Natural ecosystem again of two type, one is terrestrial ecosystem and one is aquatic ecosystem. Terrestrial ecosystem, all type of forest, land ecosystem, whatever ecosystem that we have in land, that is terrestrial ecosystem, and aquatic ecosystem, that is related to the water bodies, okay. So terrestrial ecosystem generally forest ecosystem, grassland ecosystem, desert ecosystem, that we will discuss further. And aquatic ecosystem, generally we have fresh water ecosystem, marine water ecosystem, running water ecosystem, standing ecosystem, or very simpler way we can say like pond ecosystem. So this is one of the example of aquatic ecosystem, okay. Yeah, this is the natural versus artificial ecosystem. So in your exam you can have this type of question: differentiate between natural ecosystem and artificial ecosystem. Give some examples of natural ecosystem and artificial ecosystem. So here is the answer. Natural ecosystem is the natural hunting consisting of all plants, animal, microorganisms, a place where plants and animals are dependent. And artificial ecosystem generally created, man-made. We are creating for us the artificial ecosystem. Whatever ecosystem we are creating, that is called artificial, okay. Yeah, now the forest ecosystem. So if you have this type of question, like discuss about the forest ecosystem, discuss about the components of forest ecosystem. So for answering this question you have to write down some of the examples of the components of the forest ecosystem. First you have to write down the classification. What are the classification of forest classification of components of forest ecosystem, and the classification is same as the classification of components of ecosystem that we have discussed earlier, okay. The same, like there are two parts, one is abative factor, one is biotic factor. So there are first the forest ecosystem or any type of ecosystems are of two type. One is biotic, one is abiotic. For abiotic we have three types of components. One is physical. physical components we have temperature, light, air, humidity, wind. Okay, so these are all physical, pressure. These are all physical component. Now organic component, generally we have the organic, whatever organic compounds we have in the forest, that is the same protein, vitamin, carbohydrate. So these are all the organic compound. Now inorganic components, exactly the same, that is carbon dioxide, water, oxygen, nitrogen, different type of inorganic salts. This is very important. Salts, calcium, magnesium salts, potassium, sodium salts. So they are all the inorganic components. So these are about the abiotic components. Now biotic components again are of three types, you know all. Okay, what is that? That is producer, consumer, and the decomposer. So producers, all type of green plants, that is the producers, that is the autotrophs, right? In forest, generally the large tree, the tall, the long trees. Okay, so these are all the green plants are the producers. Next, consumers. There are three types of consumers we have already, we know. That is what? One is primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer. Primary consumer, like insects, all type of insects, lizard, rodents. Okay, so they are the primary consumers. Next, secondary consumer, like snake, bird, lizard, foxes. Okay, so they are feeding on the primary consumer. So they are the examples of the carnivorous for the forest ecosystem. They are secondary consumers. And for the tertiary consumers, like lion, tiger, so they are all the carnivorous, huh? They fed on the all type of herbivores like deer. um, okay, so they are called by the tertiary consumers. And the after all, decomposer mainly the microorganisms like bacteria. They can decompose the dead bodies, dead leaves, all dead biodegradable organic matters, or organic waste, into carbon dioxide and water. So they are called by decomposer. Okay, so this is all about the forest ecosystem. Next, we will discuss about the grassland ecosystem. Again, the same question, same and the in same manner you have to answer the question. Like first of all, for grass ecosystem, we have two components. One is biotic, one is abiotic. Abiotic components means physical, inorganic, organic. The same. Physical means like carbon dioxide, wind, sunlight, heat, energy, wind, pressure. So these are all the physical components. Inorganic components, carbon dioxide, water, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide. These are all inorganic components. And organic components is again like protein, carbohydrate. So these are the carbohydrate, lipid. So these are all the organic components. Okay, now biotic components again are of three types. Producers, all type of, here this is the grassland, so all type of grass, all type of shrubs. Okay, herbs. So they are the producers, they are acting as the producers here for the grassland ecosystem. Now consumers, three type again. Primary consumers, like all type of insects, termites, grazing animals like cattle, sheep, goat. They are all the belongs to this primary consumers. Now secondary consumers, generally these are carnivorous and feeding on the primary consumers like frog, lizard, snake. So they are the secondary consumer. And tertiary consumer, these are the carnivorous feeding on the secondary consumers like hyena, fox, crow, peacock, hawk. So they are all the tertiary consumers. And again the decomposers, the bacteria, fungi, protozoa, microbes. These are the microbes that present in the soil, and they are decomposing the dead organisms. Okay, so this is the components of grassland ecosystem. Next we will see desert ecosystem. So here also, desert ecosystem, again in a similar manner you have to answer, that is desert occupy 17% of the land. Okay, for desert ecosystem, the abiotic components are same: physical, organic, inorganic. And for the biotic components, like producers are mainly shrub, grass, some cactus type trees. So they are all the producers. Okay. And consumers, the most common animals like reptiles, insects, some rodents, birds, and above all, sheep of desert, that is camel, all you know, fed on the tender plants. Okay, so these are the examples of consumers for the desert ecosystem. Now decomposer the same. These are very few, as due to poor vegetation of due to very in desert we have very less amount of greenery, very less amount of green plants. Okay, so that is why the dead organic matter is less. There are some fungi, some bacteria. Okay, so there the decomposers. So this is all about the desert ecosystem. Next we have pond ecosystem. Again, for pond ecosystem, the same biotic factor, biotic components, abiotic components are same: physical, the physical, inorganic, organic, the same. And for biotic components, producers mainly phytoplankton. For, excuse me, whatever plants we have in the water body, that is the examples of the producers for this pond ecosystem. Okay, algae. Okay, phytoplankton. Okay, so these are the microscopic plants like hydrilla. So these are the all examples of the producers. Now consumers, primary consumers, mainly the tadpole, the fish, the insects. They are all the primary consumers which fed on the producers directly. They are herbivorous generally. Okay, secondary consumers, carnivorous like crab, frog, they are secondary consumers which fed on the primary consumer. And tertiary consumers like large fish, turtle. So they are all the tertiary consumers. And as for example, the decomposers are bacteria, fungi, which we can have in a large amount, a large number in the water body. So this is all about the pond ecosystem. And the last we have, that is a mangrove ecosystem. Very little amount you have. This is a different, totally different type of mangrove, different type of ecosystem that we have. Which starts with the mangrove litter decomposed by the microorganisms. Okay, crab graze directly on litter after breaking down the litter by the fungi, bacteria, prawn and fish fed on the decomposed litter. So particulate organic matter is a direct source of the food. Okay, so this is all about the mangrove ecosystem. So so these are the some of the ecosystem that you will have the question from this and you will have in your syllabus. Okay, now so this is the recapitulation whatever we have discussed today. That is, first we have discussed today, that is the structure and function of the following ecosystem, like forest ecosystem. First we have discussed the components of the ecosystem. Then we have discussed forest ecosystem. Yes, the grassland ecosystem. Yes, the desert ecosystem and the aquatic ecosystem. Okay, so you have to, so students, you have to read very carefully about all type of ecosystem, because there are some different consumers. There are different examples that we have for the consumers, for producers, so that you have to check very well whenever you will answer the question. So this is the last portion of the ecology and ecosystem. Next we will discuss about the environmental management. So thank you students. Please follow the classes properly and do the assignments correctly. Uh, and also you have to submit your assignment within the time. So bye students, see you in the next class.